I'd like to thank everybody for being on the call, and we're going to go ahead and record this. So we'll put it on our website for if you have family members or other business partners that want to kind of learn a little bit just about the basic understanding of business transition in the next generation. It's kind of a big topic, a big title, I guess, to all-inclusive of a lot of thoughts when it comes to looking at your biggest asset of what you're going to do with your business to either your future partners, whether it's family members or individuals working in the business or maybe people out of the business. So we'll talk about that. Happy to have Tracy Bittner. She's a partner with Stratton, DeLay, Dole, Carlson, Bittner, and Stover. You need a longer name. And I don't know why Bittner's second to the bottom, or maybe it's second from the top.
I think it's age. I think it's age.
Age, yeah. It can't be looks. So I've seen Dole before. But I appreciate you coming on. And this is just kind of Tracy was nice enough to come on because I know she has experience. There's a lot of good attorneys here locally. And, I just want to promote using a local attorney because we work well together. Don't need to go to a major market to get an attorney with this topic. So with that, I'm kind of get into, what this presentation's about. And really, when I have a client come in, and this is really an informal talk. Tracy has the same clients coming in. Really, what are the goals? And do you have someone in the next generation to have your business go to? Really, the primary goal with everybody that I see is how can we keep this business running and growing? Typically, you're the one that started this business. Typically, you're the one that put the sleepless nights in and things like that. We all know how we got there. How do you pass that on to the next generation is the primary goal for most people. How do you get paid, actually? And, what is your business worth? And what I kind of find interesting is that most business owners have no clue what their business is worth. And we do certified business valuations, and we can either certify it or keep it more informal just for internal purposes. But, we look at the stock market as valued every day, but yet our biggest asset, chances are our biggest asset is not valued every day, and sometimes it's not valued at all. And so I think it's good to understand, how is this thing valued? Is it based off net income? Is it based off sales? Is it based off of, just operations in general, and how to improve on that? So one of the biggest mistakes I see is that people show up at the desk and say, you know what, I want to get out of the business and I want to get out like yesterday type of thing. And they never really spent the time to really increase their value and maybe change the name from Jane Doe Inc. to Acme Inc., to make it more palatable for some outside buyer to come in. There's all kinds of little things to make it more operationally profitable. And because of that, you get more for the money. So I don't know if you see anything else, Tracy, in this topic of people coming to you.
Yeah, no, I think you covered most everything. And the biggest thing is to have the plan and think about it, make it, and have it not be for yesterday.
Right. So really, where to start? Talking about plans. What's your plans for today? So I think the easiest way to wake people up is, okay, if you got hit by a bus, would your loved ones know, like, what is the plan with this business? Do you have an outlet for this thing? And once you kind of think past that, maybe look at, okay, maybe it's not the hit by the bus moment. Let's look at, okay, what is the 1 year? And I know this is tough to do, but what does 5 years from now look? What does 10 years from now look? Business owners definitely going to change in those years. I know that's tough to do, but you do need to start writing down some things of what that would even look like. Do you have anybody in the works in the next 3 to 5 to 10 years to buy you out? I don't know if there's any comments on that, Tracy.
No, but I think that's a good suggestion to actually write it down so you remember what you were thinking about last year or 3 years ago, and review that to see if you're still on track or if things have changed and why they've changed.
Yeah, I think a 10-year plan, I know that sounds almost impossible to do, but if you started 10 years before maybe this magical event in your mind, that would be ideal. versus just thinking about, okay, tomorrow type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So start early. So I think when you look at transitioning, there's internal and there's external. I think the ideal for most of Northeast Nebraska transitioning of businesses, because we deal with a lot of smaller businesses, and definition of small is pretty well all of the businesses in Northeast Nebraska except for a few. That's definition by national standards. So we're dealing with those 50 employees on down is what's typical. And a lot of times, more times than not, it's family businesses. So you have an internal, maybe you have some key employees that are going to be coming on. Sometimes those key employees are family members, and there's that whole family dynamic that we have to talk about. Sometimes they're gut punch type of moments, because you have to be aware of, maybe that family member is not as key as maybe the key employees. So you have to wrestle with those thoughts. So are we grooming leaders and setting them up to be successful? And is a timetable appropriate? So let's talk about maybe timetable. A lot of times I see maybe a 50, 55, 60-year-old owner that put in the blood, sweat, and tears, and they're bringing on this person internally. And maybe that person's 30, maybe the person's 40. Tracy, I don't know if you have any opinion, and every time is different, but maybe what's your opinion for bringing on maybe a new person? Do you want to bring him in as a 50-50 owner, or would you rather bring him in as maybe a 10%, maybe date a little bit before you get married?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think that it's a good idea to kind of, I do like the idea of giving a percent ownership if you have somebody that's going to transition to leadership, because they'll learn into ownership, they'll learn the business better if they have a little skin in the game. But yes, a slow, and that's what I like about it too, because I do estate planning as well. So it's kind of nice to hand it over slowly. And then you can also prepare yourself emotionally for not having full control of everything, which is also a hard part for transitioning a business.
Yeah, I think the thing, and I don't know if I heard the word gift, but you also talked about skin in the game. I'm a big skin in the game believer. I think, this new generation, not even new generation, the next upcoming leaders, I think they need to buy in to the business, and buy in meaning not only mentally, but financially. I think they need to go either get a loan from the bank, or maybe you finance it and you're the bank. But no matter what, I think they need to buy that stock. Now you can do a discounted value if you wanted to give them a 25% discount or some kind of discount to make them, feel that they got some value out of this. But just mentally, I think buying it is way better than gifting. I've had a few people gift, and I'm not saying it hasn't worked. I just don't think it works as well. That's my opinion.
I'd agree.
As far as timetable, I agree with Tracy. I think the dating thing is good. I think in the ideal world, if you had enough time to transition someone into majority ownership, if you did 5 to 10% increments and did it, if they paid off the 5% or paid off the 10%, then maybe they go to the next level of buying another 10%. And you keep doing that until you get to 49% or 50%. Really, as long as you're a minority owner, this new leader, you're not giving out the keys to the business, but you're bringing them in slowly so that they can mentally think that they're the owner. They can start making decisions. And then once they turn from 49 to 50 to 51, 51 is when the keys get thrown at them.
Yeah.
So that's internal. Internal can be done with family. It can be done with a key employee. It can be done with a combination of both. Some of the biggest mistakes I've seen maybe with family is you're bringing them on too quick, or you elevate them too quick, and maybe there's some key employees that maybe deserve to be brought along even faster maybe than the family member. Family members are tough, and I guess that's our job to be candid with the owner, saying this is what I see, because our goal is to make sure that this business lives on, as long as this owner wants it to live on. because we want that business to survive in Northeast Nebraska. And I think family, the emotions of family, the kitchen tables, the turkey dinners, and all that kind of get in the way sometimes of good business decisions. So I don't know if there's any comments on family versus key employees that you've seen.
No, it's a tough dynamic sometimes. It's definitely something that should be talked about.
As far as external transition, so say you didn't groom anybody, whether it's family or you didn't groom anybody internally. The next step would be external, and external meaning you're going to sell outright to your competitors. That's always a tough, way to go, because you have to expose, you kind of have to dress down in front of your competitors, and your competitors know everything about you. They know that you're on the market. They eventually learn a lot more about your business as they go through that process. Tracy, can you talk about like a disclosure agreement, just so everybody kind of gets to speed on how maybe that would work if you're approaching your competitor?
Sure. When you're selling your business, you don't want everyone in the world to know about it. You're also going to have to disclose some of your the financial well-being of the business to be able to get the value out of it, or even to talk about the value of it. In that instance, we can have the potential buyer sign a non-disclosure agreement where they promise not to disclose what they've learned, and can be held to it if you hear that it got out.
It's probably always a tough thing to prove. I don't know if you've ever been involved with one of those, but
it is, but it does make people think, if I was in this position, I would not want to do that either. So they do respect them.
Yeah. Some of the sometimes mistakes I see is that if you want to go this route, I know sometimes there's fly-by-night brokers that kind of come through, and brokers meaning agencies that sell businesses, and they kind of promise the moon that they have all these people in their back pocket and they're going to bring them to the table. Well, sometimes those people don't materialize, and they'll get this upfront fee. If I was going to involve a broker, especially from out of the area, I'd want to make sure it's probably contingent on the sale. So less upfront money, if not no upfront money, and more contingent on the sale and success of that, with maybe a limited time for them to be able to broker the sale. So if you gave them 1 year to knock on a few doors and it's a percentage of the sale, that's a lot better than giving them upfront. I've seen upfront 50,000 or 25,000. They kind of do a glorified value. They say they have all these people, and then nothing materializes, and they run with the money. So I've seen that. So let's, we identified our candidates, whether it's internal, external. Usually external is a lot cleaner because you're usually just selling it and getting the check. Let's talk about, this is probably more about internal, I guess, that you got maybe a key employee, whether it's family or internal. And so I'm going to have Tracy talk about the buy-sell.
Right, so now we'll get into like the guts of the buy-sell agreement. A buy-sell agreement is an agreement you make with your partners, the other members in your LLC, other stockholders. For this slides, for this PowerPoint, I'm using the term partner. So you want to do this fairly at the beginning of your business, plan for the unexpected or the possible exit of a partner for whatever reason. These are kind of like prenuptial agreements when you get married. So you're planning on the exit, what's going to happen. And I just want you to know that these are default agreements if you can't agree, if everyone can't agree otherwise in the situation. So this is what you put in this agreement is going to happen unless you come up with a better idea, or the situation is different and this agreement doesn't make any sense anymore.
I think one of the biggest mistakes is when someone's creating a business or bringing in a partner, everybody has that excitement of, looking at the growth and looking at all, this change in marketing and all this stuff going on. And nobody takes the time to maybe do this. Now, typically, you might have a standard agreement maybe built into your operating agreement, or maybe there's a canned agreement that's signed, and people don't realize that they signed it for the most part. But yeah, just like Tracy's saying, I mean, this is probably the most important document, hands down. And I kind of look at it from the standpoint, if I died, how is my spouse going to get out of this thing? What are they going to get out of this thing? So that there's no argument whatsoever would be the goal.
Right. It's really giving the rights to your family and to be able to have some standing in the business. Yeah. So in my operating agreement for LLCs, there is a default buy sell provision in there, and the triggering events are the partner relationship ends for whatever reason. You might want to just leave, or you might not want your other partner in it anymore. Mm-hmm. So I have written in forced buyouts, forced sales for if the majority of the members do not want to be a member with one or partners. It's just, that's one of those provisions that you need to negotiate with your partners. Mm-hmm. And then again, incapacity or death, those are the more all of the sudden instances. So when you have a partner that wants out, they want to sell their membership interest or their shares or their percentage of partnership to the other partners, basically. Well, that's most people want to do that. That's your biggest buyer, potential buyer. So we usually do rights of first refusal when the partner wants out. So how those are written is, I want out, I found a buyer, a third party buyer, and they're going to buy it at these certain terms. And then I have to offer that to my other partners first at the same terms. Well, usually it's to the company first if it's an LLC. If the company doesn't want it, the members can buy it then at the same terms. And if nobody wants it at those terms, you can sell it to somebody else you can sell it to the third party. There's all kinds of implications because you're going to have a new partner that maybe nobody knows, but that all would need to be worked out. But usually with rights of first refusal, we don't, and these provisions, we don't have a third party involved. It's usually, I want out, I want to sell it to you guys. Can I sell it to you guys at these terms? And you just work it out. So usually you don't have to have a third party willing to buy, but it just depends on the situation.
Yeah, my personal opinion is I don't like the idea of the third party because I've never personally seen anybody bring a third party to the table personally. Mm-hmm. Because if you and I are partners and, I guess let's say we have three partners, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. Who on earth is going to want to buy my 1/3 interest and be a partner with two people that maybe they don't know? And so that's just a tough, and plus they'd be minority interest. So those other two would team up and it just wouldn't be fair to that person trying to buy in. What's the value of that? Obviously be discounted. So I think the goal would be is that you try to avoid this third party language for the most part, as long as you have a strong partnership with someone within your organization and determine a value. And that's really setting up this next thing. There's probably two ways to do a value. One is you sit down every year, which this tends to be some standard language as well, and you certify that value. And personally, I love that because the partners got together once a year and they said, you know what, this is what we feel it's worth. We're going to sign it. And if anybody dies or anybody wants to quit, this is what the marching order is going to be. What I hate about this is nobody meets once a year.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, so it's worthless. So even though I love it, I hate it. And it's a love-hate relationship. Unfortunately, I hate it more than I love it because nobody meets and you don't have a certified value every year. So what I like personally is this formula in some case that is kind of a floating number. So it's a formula based on the net income. It's a formula based on sales, depending on your industry. And we have all kinds of different industry numbers that we can base it off of. Everybody's a little bit different. But I like that floating number. I also like to use maybe an average of 3 years, an average of 5 years. Maybe 3 is fair. It could be 2 years, it could be the current year. If you're in growth mode and you think that growth is going to continue, then maybe you'd want to weight it towards the current year. So there's all kinds of ways to look at this floating formula. But yeah, what I like about that is you got the rules of the game. It's like opening up the Monopoly box, and you got the rules right inside. All you got to do is read the rules, and you go based off of what the financials show, and you do the multiple off of that, and that is what the spouse is going to get. That's what the family is going to get in case of death, or that's how you're going to get bought out. And hopefully there's no argument, even in the toughest times or the family times, of what this thing's worth. So I don't know if you have an opinion on either one, but that's my opinion.
I feel the same way as you. I think a certified annual value is fantastic, just because it makes everybody sit down, think about the business, think about what it's worth to them, and then they can make the decision for the next year based on that price. But you're right, no one meets annually to do this, and it's a little uncomfortable. People don't like to think about it. The formula is fantastic. It is flexible, so that as long as your formula is understood by everybody, you're right. It is, the rules are right there.
Mm-hmm.
So when someone dies or becomes incapacitated, that is a little different scenario. So usually in that instance, a spouse will inherit or the kids inherit, and they don't want it. So the company would have the option to buy the interest in the business. So in this provision, you lay out the terms of the sale. So if the company doesn't exercise the option, the other partners or members do. But again, we have to deal with the value, and we can use a formula, we can use a certified value, or you can use a fair market value, get it appraised. The personal representative can get it appraised, the buyer can get it appraised, and you can average it, however you want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's more, you can do an option to buy, or you can do a forced buy, like the other partners have to buy from a family member. That's usually how we deal with those.
In the case of death and incapacity, I mean, that's a deal where you didn't plan this, and it's an accident. And I like the company being forced to buy at maybe this floating formula is an opinion. Now, if it's, if I'm just going to retire out of the blue, I'm not going to tell anybody else, and I show up and I just don't want to be here anymore. I mean, I think that's a different story. Whether you want to force the company to buy at that, maybe it's not full market value, maybe it's a discount, maybe it's 25% off because you pulled that, showing up and wanting to get out type of thing. But yeah, in the case of death or incapacity, I think you need 100% value, and I think the company needs to buy you out and get the spouse taken care of and move on. And that probably brings up to, really, if you're going to do that, I know there's a lot of buy-sell insurance out there. Personally, there's two ways to maybe take care of that risk. One would be just term insurance, maybe. I know you can get more complex with insurance, but I think you can handle a lot of it with term insurance. It's the cheapest. Or you could maybe force the company to buy out the spouse or the family over a period of time, and so that the company would just, be able to finance it. I don't know if you want to talk about, and maybe we have another slide for the terms, the kind of the interest rate and things like that, if you did something like that, a seller finance.
Sure. So the financing, you can just do cash at closing, or so the bank usually finances, or the seller can carry the loan is how we reference that. And you can make the terms favorable. Usually you have a purchase agreement, just kind of like real estate. And you have a promissory note that you make an agreement over term, the payment comes back over terms of years. The interest rate can be whatever you have rules. You have to charge a certain amount. There's an AFR amount that comes out, I think monthly, is that monthly?
Yep.
That you have to at least charge that amount. If you don't, there's a lot of promissory notes with zero interest floating around, but technically that amount of interest is a gift back to the person. It's deemed a gift. So usually there's a minimum payment or a down payment, term of years, percentage. We do an amortization schedule. And the thing I like about a promissory note is that it's passable to the next generation. So if you have, if the members have bought the surviving spouse out, she dies or he dies 2 years later, and there's 10 years left on the note, that note is an asset that can be passed pursuant to her estate plan. So it can be assigned right along to whoever's supposed to get it, and then payments are just made to that person. And then also a promissory note can be secured by the assets of a business through the Uniform Commercial Code. So you can really make it, I know one of the goals a lot of times is to make it possible for someone to buy, possible for the child to buy, and still get you money. This is one way to do it. You might get your full price, but it's going to be over time.
Yeah, typically, I'll recommend maybe a 5 to 10 year window. If you take a 10-year window, usually the business can definitely handle those payments over a 10-year window. You could always look at sooner, 7-year window and so forth. But yeah, as far as interest rates, Tracy's right. There's this AFR rate. It's the required minimum rate that the IRS expects you to charge. Also, you can use prime rate. Right now prime rate's like 6.25 roughly, based on Wall Street Journal. So you can put that generic language in there of prime rate based on Wall Street Journal. So whenever this triggering event happens at death, then whatever that rate is at that given month, that would be the rate for this 10-year. Typically, I'll allow for prepay, so that if you want to ever just go to the bank, knock on the door and get the bank and pay off this loan. I don't think the family should argue getting their money early too. So those things can always be wrestled in with, working with Tracy and so forth.
Mm-hmm. So sometimes you don't have a partner. Your child's not your partner if that's who you're transitioning to, but they work with you. So we don't have a buy-sell as far as partner to partner, but we can make separate option agreements. So you might have a book of business and your child has a book of business. You can have an option to buy each other out upon death or incapacity. You can put an option right in the will. I do this a lot with farmers. They're farming with the son and they want them to have the land, so they give them the option to buy the land if they want to. You can also put a right of first refusal in the will. Like, I want my kids to have the land, but if one of them wants to sell it, they have to offer it to the other ones first. Same provisions go in the option and the right of first refusal in your will as they do in a buy-sell agreement.
Yeah, a couple things. You could definitely do it with competition. I've seen that a couple times. It's pretty rare, but if you had two competitors, but you got along, and said if anything happens to me, maybe I don't have any employees, and this other person doesn't really have any employees, and take it over. You could have informal, formal agreements, I guess, between the two.
Yeah,
that's one thing.
We do that with law firms a lot. Sole practitioners do that with each other. Mm-hmm.
With land, you mentioned land. Sometimes you can go off of county assessor value, whether it's a multiple off of that. Usually the county assessor discounts,
Mm-hmm.
farmland. You could go off either full county assessed value or taxed county assessed value as options to kind of have that floating number, and that could be either in your agreement or in your will, to make sure that maybe the son takes it over at a stated price, and then all the families doesn't feel left out, type of thing. So that could be done. And if you don't like that value, just blame the county assessor and vote them out.
Right.
Blame them. Blame the government.
That's right. And then if you do have a buy-sell agreement, you have a 55% interest in this LLC with someone else, and you have your buy-sell agreement, I still always reference that buy-sell agreement in the wills I draft, just so everyone knows what's going on with that business. I will say I have interest in this business at this time, and this interest is subject to a buy-sell agreement within that business. So you're not necessarily giving anything, but it's referenced so everyone knows that you've planned.
Everybody knows it exists out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Since we're talking about estate plan, I think one of the things that I've been a little bit stronger with people on, and maybe you can talk about this a little bit, is whatever plan you come up with, it's always better hearing from the parents or the mom and dad or whoever these owners are, if they could have a sit down with the family that, okay, this is what's going to happen. And I know, Johnny, you feel that Paul shouldn't get it and all this stuff, but this is what my thinking was. You're the older one or whatever that thinking was. It's a lot better hearing it from you while you're alive than Tracy while you're gone. Because
yeah, I don't want to be the bearer of that news. You're right. Every family is different. Every family is definitely different. But I always advise transparency. It's when there's not transparency, someone thinks someone else is hiding something or did something wrong. It is easier to hear it from the parent. The other thing that I know we're going to talk about common mistakes, so I'm just going to jump right to my.
Let's do it.
And that is, son and dad are farming together. They're not necessarily farming together, but they own all this equipment and nobody knows who owns it except them. So dad dies, there goes your witness that he owned it. And no one believes the son about what equipment is owned by the son or not. And I'm sure that causes problems for you, Jared, on the taxation side of things. So I always think when you're doing business together, it's nice to have informal handshake agreements, but somewhere you need to have some documentation or some evidence of what exactly is going on, because it's not just you two that are in an agreement. It is you two, and then the whole family behind you are the successors in interest. They're the ones that are really going to care about what's happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the people outside of the business are usually the ones that feel hurt.
They're the ones fighting about it. They're the ones fighting
definitely.
about the business.
Yeah, personally, it doesn't bother me because we let the attorneys just deal with it, and then we. So that's what we. Yeah. So yeah, really, these are just common mistakes, and we can talk about stories. What we feel are the common mistakes. No plan is really it's not a plan at all. I kind of like this. I came up with it. The porridge is too hot or too cold. So we have people come in every year, and every year they just, something, they keep thinking about it, or maybe the business needs to get to this level, or, something else. There's always this reason. And I kind of just sit back and listen. I think part of it is they know that this key employee, whether it's typically family, is maybe not quite ready to take this challenge on. Maybe that's what's, kind of buried inside, but I can never get that out. And yeah, I think if they keep waiting for this moment, something bad's going to happen. And, it's Tracy, gets a job, I guess, but yeah, that's really what we're trying to avoid is, we got to talk freely about it, that transparency that you brought up. Let's talk about maybe a few stories if you got time for just a few stories on common mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the most common one is no one knows what's going on in that partnership. And that's what really does cause the problems. Or not having a value assigned. Outside family always thinks things are more valuable than, outside family members always thinks the company is more valuable than the inside family member that's trying to buy it. And they don't understand because that the goal is to make them able to buy it. So it might be a little bit discounted. But you're right, it is better coming from mom and dad than it is from brother.
One thing I saw recently, and this is something to think about, is for myself, is to write down what your thinking was when you set some of this up. And the one story I have is father wrote a letter. He was a farmer, wrote a letter. Really, if something happened to me, this is kind of my thinking. he wrote a letter about never sell the land. Land's so precious. That's how I built, our business and our family and all this. And he knew exactly what that guy was thinking. And I tell you what, the kids, there's just plain no argument about the importance of that farmland. Now, the talk is what's going to happen to the next generation. And, it never, I wouldn't say it never, but, it can definitely make the transition to the next generation. It's that next generation, the grandkids, that it just gets tougher and tougher with stuff like that, just because they didn't experience living with mom and dad and things like that. But I think with every parent, that's the goal, is how can I get it to the next generation without the kids arguing about all of that. And I thought that letter was tremendous if you didn't have a family meeting.
Right. What it does, it instills the value that everyone can cling to, and they know that that's what needs to happen no matter what. And it kind of gives a vision for the transition.
Right. A common mistake, I think I'm not a fan of getting two appraisals, because I think two appraisals make an argument. If you can go with just the formula and common sense formula, maybe test that formula throughout the years. Do we have the right formula in place? Is this how I would want my spouse to be treated if something happened to me? I love the floating formula, and I think that's maybe a common mistake that maybe doesn't happen. They didn't spend the time to make sure that the formula is working.
Right. Or that it was clear what the formula was, that it was clear what it was.
Right, right. Can you think of, I think another common mistake is, we talked about it, I mean, family. Yeah, family business is just tough. And I think you really just have to sit down and think, okay, is that family member, is that really my best choice? And that's really tough to say. The more you can keep that family member maybe more independent and let them get kicked around, just like you got kicked around throughout life, the better off they are. But how can you make that family business successful? And that's our primary goal. And sometimes they get elevated too quickly without getting kicked around. And I think that's one of the common mistakes around here.
Yeah, I'm sure you're right. It's hard not to do that for your kids, right? It's hard not to pave their way and hope they do well, but you learn a lot from making your mistakes. And
right.
Yeah.
Can you think of anything else that we missed?
No, this was a good talk for me.
Yeah, we could go forever on estate planning and stuff with this as well. But this really was designed. One, start working with your local attorney, start working with your local CPA on just how to do this business transition, because you need to start talking about it early. You can't do it. You can't plan on it for yesterday to happen today, or whatever, how you ever want to say that. But you need a 10-year plan, and yeah, just start talking. And there's no right decision. I think the only wrong decision is you just don't start talking.
Right. I always say just get something down. You can always work on it.
Right. Yeah, the only mistake you'll ever make is once they become 51%, then it's too late. If they're 49, you can always change the rules a little bit. We don't want to do that, but that's always the way it is. So, but with that, I want to thank Tracy for taking the time to do this. And, once again, it'll be on our website. If you have any clients or friends or family members that you'd like to have see this, that's great. Give both of us a call.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Tracy.